When we talk about AI safety, our minds usually jump straight to those big Hollywood scenarios. But what if the real threat isn't some rogue AI, but one that's doing its job perfectly? Today, we're going to dive into a totally different way of thinking about AI safety. It's called the Human Agency Safety Doctrine, and it's all about a threat we might not even see coming.
So, what is the real threat we should be laser focused on? Well, this doctrine argues that the biggest danger isn't what we see in the movies. Nope, it's something much quieter, way more subtle, and it's already happening.
So on one hand, you've got the classic sudden takeover. Your Skynet, your HAL 9000. It's super dramatic, makes for a great story. But on the other hand, there's this idea of gradual disempowerment. And this isn't about AI deciding to rebel. It's about us, slowly and willingly, handing over the keys to systems that are working exactly as they're supposed to. And this gets right to the heart of the issue. The real failure mode isn't malice, it's irrelevance. It's this idea that we could become structurally irrelevant. So we'd still be in charge on paper, but in reality, we'd be completely unable to change course or even shut down the systems running our world. It's like you're still sitting in the driver's seat, but the steering wheel isn't connected to anything anymore.
Right, and this kind of thing doesn't happen all at once. It's not a big bang. It's a slow creep, a process of losing control by almost invisible inches. So, how on earth does this disempowerment actually happen?
Well, here's the crazy part. It happens because the AI systems are succeeding. They're hitting their targets, they're making everything more efficient, they're delivering amazing results, so there are no alarm bells, no red flags, no big crises to warn us. And yet, with every single success, our own authority is quietly being chipped away. Okay, think about it like using a GPS. At first, you're the driver, right? And it's just this helpful tool. But pretty soon, you start to trust it to find the best route every single time. And what happens? Your own internal map, your own sense of direction, it just starts to fade. You've been disempowered, not because the system failed you, but because it worked too well. And what we're actually losing there is what this doctrine calls human agency. This isn't just some vague philosophical idea. We're talking about the real, hands-on, practical ability to be in charge, to have an idea, tell the system what to do, and have it actually listen. It's our power to say yes, and maybe even more crucially, our power to say no. So this slow drift becomes genuinely dangerous when we start to cross certain thresholds, what the doctrine calls points of no return. These are the moments where trying to get back in control becomes incredibly difficult, or just way too costly to even attempt. The doctrine lays out 6 of these critical milestones. You can think of them like big, flashing warning signs on the road to becoming structurally irrelevant. Once you pass them, it gets exponentially harder to turn back. Let's break down a few examples of what they look like. First up is something called decision loop displacement. This is the point where we stop coming up with ideas ourselves and instead just become approvers. The AI makes a recommendation and we just rubber stamp it. Maybe because it's just too hard to disagree, or we don't have the info to challenge it. And over time, our own expertise, our own institutional knowledge, it just withers away.
Then, things get even more serious with a high-stakes example: autonomous security authority. Just for the sake of speed, we might give an AI the power to make real-time decisions about national defense, with humans only looking at things before or after they happen. The moment we suggest putting a person back in that loop, it's actually framed as a security risk, a vulnerability. We've literally defined human judgment as a weakness in the system.
And a third milestone to watch out for is getting hooked on opaque models. This is when our most important systems, finance, logistics, you name it, start to rely on black box AI that no single human really understands. We can't question its logic, so we just have to trust it. And what if we wanted to replace it? Well, we'd have to accept a huge drop in performance, and that's a cost pretty much nobody is willing to pay. Okay, so that's the problem. And yeah, it's a pretty serious one. But the good news is, this doctrine doesn't just point out the issue. It actually gives us a concrete playbook for how to avoid it, a way to build AI that empowers us instead of displacing us. This right here is the absolute heart of the doctrine. It's called the core invariant, and you can think of it as the one golden rule that can never, ever be broken. It basically says that if an AI system can only succeed by making humans less powerful, then it is fundamentally unsafe, period, even if it looks like it's working perfectly. So how do we actually enforce this rule? Well, the counter curve strategy gives us the tools.
It says we need to build in real, easy-to-use veto buttons. We have to insist on understanding how a system works before we let it run critical parts of our world. We have to start measuring success not just by performance, but by how much agency we get to keep. And finally, we need watchdogs with some actual teeth. And look, this isn't just theory. It's designed to be super practical. The human leverage audit boils these ideas down into simple pass-fail questions. Can we actually meaningfully override the system? Would turning it off cause a total catastrophe? Can it change its own goals without asking us first? If the answer is no, no, and yes, it fails the audit. It's really that simple.
At the end of the day, this all comes down to a really critical difference. A stakeholder is someone whose opinion gets considered. A principal, on the other hand, is the one with the ultimate authority. This whole doctrine is designed to make sure we stay the principals, that we're the ones writing our own story, not just characters whose preferences get fed into an algorithm.
And this isn't some problem for a far-off distant future. The pressures and incentives pushing us towards this gradual disempowerment are already here, right now, which makes this whole framework incredibly urgent. Here's the executive summary of the doctrine. And while there's a lot of detail, the main idea is actually pretty simple. It's asking us to completely shift our perspective on AI safety. We need to stop worrying only about what happens when AI goes wrong and start paying way more attention to what happens when it goes perfectly right. The goal is to preserve our role as the principals by design. And let's be really clear here. This is not about being anti-technology or trying to stop progress. It's about steering that progress in the right direction. We can have unbelievably powerful AI. We just need to build it in a way that our own leverage, our own agency grows right along with it. The goal is partnership, not dependency.
So I'll just leave you with this question. As we bring more and more AI into our daily lives, from the apps on our phones to the massive systems that run our society, are we consciously demanding that these systems treat us as partners? Or are we just quietly, maybe without even realizing it, accepting a future of dependency?